Hello and welcome to the Pagan Portal Podcast, produced by Moonbooks Publishing and presented by me, Rachel Patterson. If you would like the audio-only version, please hop on over to Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, please consider becoming a member and don't forget to subscribe. Today we have the very wonderful witch and author, Mabh Savage. Welcome.
Hi, yeah, it's really nice to be here. Lovely to see you.
We're in autumn. We love autumn. We're very happy that the heat's gone. Can you begin by telling us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Mabh. I'm a pagan musician, author, poet. I do consider myself a witch, as you said, because I practice magic and the occasional ritual and things like that. I've been writing for a couple of decades now. Got several books out, and I've got some music on Spotify. And my main sort of leaning at the moment is I'm just very obsessed with nature, very obsessed with getting out and about and discovering local nature, which has culminated in a bit of a fascination with birds, which is what has led to the latest book, which is all about the magic of birds.
Brilliant. So is witch the label you would use? I know it's a label, isn't it? It's one of those.
Yeah. I think it's one that I've identified with for a long time, and I think it always seemed to be a bit more relevant when I used to be a lot more involved in quite structured group work, and we did call ourselves a coven, and we were a coven of witches, and that I think sort of it's a simple way to explain to people that I take magic seriously. It's not just something that is a throwaway word or term. I think magic is all around us. I think we can connect to that. I think we can use it in our daily lives. And I do try and do that. And I think that practice is witchcraft. So that makes me a witch. I think you can be a witch and perhaps not even be particularly religious or spiritual. I think you can be a witch and you can be incredibly religious and spiritual. I think a witch is both something you are and something you do. And I think most of the time I'm ticking both those boxes. So yeah, definitely.
We do like our labels, don't we? But witch does it cover so many things, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So where did all your spiritual journey begin?
Well, I have been leaning towards the pagan side of spirituality since I was a child. I grew up in a household with Wiccans, and it wasn't like it was thrust upon me or anything, but there was a lot of stuff in the house to do with Wicca and that, and I did find it fascinating. It wasn't personally a path that resonated with me as I got older. And then in sort of my teens, I dabbled with atheism and just being like, no, there's nothing, and it's all bleak. And then as you go through that sort of quite emo phase and come out the other side, and I've sort of found paganism from another angle. I joined a group that was very much more traditional witchcraft, with a lot of different influences, a lot of different eclectic influences, because it had people from a lot of different paths on there. And then as I've moved away from more structured work, I've sort of gone back into the things I'm really passionate about. So like the turning of the seasons, the nature all around us, and those things. So that I find that the path that I'm walking these days is more the magic you can see every day, the magic that is all around us. And I find that is just a really great way to connect to the world and to really feel a part of the world. And I think when you foster a connection like that, it's like just a constant reminder of, it's really important that we look after this place because we're in it and we're on it. And it's like, it seems it's self-destructive to be dismissive of nature and to see it as something separate, because we're actually part of it. We are part of nature. So it's like, it's almost self-serving in a way, because it's like, I'm honouring nature, but, that's also honouring yourself, and it's looking after yourself as well. So that's very much the path that I'm on now. But yeah, I've come to it from a roundabout way, but yeah.
I think connection is key, isn't it? It is the base to all of it for me, whether it is your spirituality, your witchcraft, whatever it might be. It's connection to
Absolutely.
everything around us. Yeah, absolutely. So I do know you have a role within the Pagan Federation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So the Pagan Federation is an organisation that advocates for and supports pagans on any path, no prescriptions, any pagan, anybody who calls himself a pagan, and provides a lot of resources and support, things like hospital chaplains and things like that. The team that I'm in is the children and families team, so we specifically look at supporting people with kids who might not have the resources to know how do I get my kids into paganism? What's an appropriate way to introduce this to them? Because one of the things that we've found, and I'm sure you will have found as well, is that a lot of pagan groups and moots and things like that tend to meet in places like pubs and things like that, which are not necessarily kid friendly. So we're sort of we're not sort of out there like putting on tons of events, but we are trying to just point people in the right direction, list resources. We do a scheme called the Ether Patch Quests, which is basically similar to scout badges that you get for doing tasks, but they're all from a totally pagan perspective. So like you can download a quest pack for free as well. It's all done for free. Unless once you get the actual patches, you have to pay a small charge to get a physical patch. But the quest packs and the certificates you get for doing them and everything, they're all completely free. And there's crystals patch where you learn all about crystals and you do different things like learning about different crystals or doing tasks with different crystals or journaling about crystals. And every time you complete one of these tasks, you work towards getting your crystals patch. We're currently working on a wicker patch, which, as from what I've just said, I'm not contributing to that one, because that's not my wheelhouse. But then we've previously done nature-based ones. So we've got a trees one, we've got a herbs one, we've got a gardening one, and I have contributed to them and put bits into them. And yeah, we just try and make it as inclusive as possible. There's quests in there that are appropriate for different ages. So there's like really easy ones that anybody can get involved with, and then there's more in-depth ones. So like, a young kid might go and learn, just learn about a local tree, but then a teen might learn about deities associated with that tree and write about that. Or there might be a quest to make a piece of music that's inspired by a particular part of nature. So that's one of the resources we do. We do things like pointing people in the direction of book lists and stuff that are appropriate for kids. And we've got a Facebook group where people just get involved, answer questions, that sort of thing. So yeah,
that's brilliant.
So, yeah,
it's not a lot out there, is there, to help and guide?
No, not really.
But I definitely want patches. Oh,
I'm they're so cool. They're so nice. They're really, really nice.
Sounds great fun. Now, there's a magazine as well, isn't there?
Yes, that's right. I edit the Ether magazine, which is biannual publication, so it's out twice a year. We try and get it out around the solstices. Doesn't always happen. The winter edition, which should have been out last winter solstice, actually came out in bulk this year because we've been having some awful technical gremlins. The website's been up and down and all sorts of things. So, but yeah, it's a great project. It relies heavily on contributions from the pagan community. I know you yourself have contributed before to some lovely recipes.
When you prompt me, because I forget.
But yeah, it's great. So we try and make it suitable for all ages. If there's articles in there that are maybe for older kids, we put like color coding on that to let parents know what might or might not be suitable. Obviously, a disclaimer in there that parents know the kids best, and we're not prescribing what they should or shouldn't read. But we have crafts in there, we have recipes, we have people share like articles about going to their first festival or their first ritual. People share pictures of what they've been doing on the Ether Patch quests, poetry, reviews of things like, pagan music, divination cards, pagan books. It's just a really nice collection of pagan community experiences, and it's really nice to see that we get a lot of stuff from different paths as well. So we get people coming at it from a Wiccan perspective, people coming at it from a heathen perspective, people with interest in Hellenistic, like ancient Greek inspired paganism, Egyptian inspired paganism, nature inspired paganism. So it's nice. It's nice because we get to interact with the community and publish all this great work, but it's also nice to see how much diversity there is within that community as well.
Yeah.
And it is quite actively diverse as well. So yeah, I think it's good because if kids are reading it, they're getting a really good sense of, oh, there isn't just one path. There's loads of things I could do,
Brilliant. Yes, it is an excellent magazine. But yeah, you do need to prompt me because I forget.
It's very fun. It's very fun to do. I do get a bit stressed come towards editing time because I suddenly have like all these articles piling up. I'm like, oh, I've got to put it all together in like 3 weeks. And then I generally just blast it out over a couple of weekends. I'm like, oh, it's done. It's done again.
Until next time.
Yeah.
That
comes around quick, I can tell you.
Absolutely brilliant. It's brilliant to have that information out there. It's excellent. So thank you for that. And now to birds. Today it's all about birds. Why birds?
I have been fascinated with birds for as long as I can remember, really. I think the main thing for me is that they are everywhere. They are omnipresent. Pretty much anywhere you can go and be still, and if there aren't any at the time, within not a very long time at all, you will either see or hear a bird somewhere. They are also, they can do things we can't do. Obviously they can fly, but it's more than that for me. I think you see birds on land, you see birds in the water, you see birds in the sky. We only have access to 2 of those planes without a lot of artificial help. We can get up in the sky, but it's difficult. And I think throughout human history, right back to, sort of Paleolithic times, that's been a deep fascination of, wow, imagine if we could get up there, imagine if we could transit between those planes of existence. Throughout mythology and folklore and modern media, this, the idea of like flying in dreams and, superheroes who can fly, and it's like seen as the perfect superpower, isn't it, to be able to get up there? But it's not, it's not just that they can fly, it's that they move between these planes. And I think from a magical perspective, I think we talk a lot about liminality and being on the edges of things, like, the seasonal turns are liminal times where you're transitioning between one state of being and another. Ritual is a transition in time when you're from, depending on what type of ritual you do, from being outside the circle to being inside the circle, or from being outside a sacred space to inside, or, and birds do this effortlessly. They move from land to water to the sky, between different environments, and it's all completely effortless, and it feels like you can connect to that ability to transition, to strengthen your own spiritual connection to the times when you need to do that, when you need to move on, when you need to transform, when you need to go on a journey. And I just think birds are symbolic in their own ways, but also a reminder of what we are actually capable of when we connect to our spiritual energy.
Apart from the pigeon that flew into my glass window.
Yeah, but then not always the brightest pigeons.
You feel like that sometimes.
It was trying to transition into your front room.
There's a nice pigeon shaped splat.
Did you get the wing?
Yes,
the wing streaks on the glass.
Right. He was right. I checked. A little dazed, but it was okay.
Yeah, tougher than they look.
Yeah, not the most blessed, are they? With brain cells, bless them.
If it makes you,
I work with pigeon. I do work with pigeon. I think they're fascinating. Yeah.
Well, if it makes the world of pigeons feel any better, I've actually seen a human being do that. I used to work in a shop, and it had a big plate glass window, and I've seen somebody walk towards the door misjudge it and just walk so hard into the glass window that they literally bounced off like cartoon style and just went down like a tree. We ended up moving a table in front of the window because we were so worried about it happening again.
Yeah, so they were not so different.
Yeah, it's not so different after all.
Now you've separated it's the magic of birds is the title, isn't it? Now you've separated
Yes,
the birds
yeah.
into categories. Do you think the actual groups have specific magical energies as a group?
In some ways, yes. I think the way I split it up in the book is I've tried to just make it really accessible. So for somebody who's coming at it with only a minimal knowledge of birds, I didn't want to make it really encyclopedic and bird by bird by bird by bird. Because I think most people, unless they've already got a vested interest in birds or they've got specific birds that they really connect to, will probably think, right, these are songbirds, these are water birds, these are birds of prey. And I think that's quite common. And the categories that I've picked are not scientific categories by any stretch, although within those categories I might go into that at times, for example, like corvids within the scavengers category and things like that. But yeah, I think certainly from a beginner's perspective, if you're getting to know the birds, then it's good to know, right, all these are songbirds. So you might see all these songbirds active between dawn and dusk, and maybe that's when you can connect with that energy. Maybe you can connect with the liminality of that, of awakening and bursting into song and feeling that energy flowing through you. And similarly with the scavengers, the category of the scavengers as a whole, you can dive into that energy of feeling a bit misunderstood, doing something that's really necessary but perhaps isn't very good, in the sense of it doesn't feel good perhaps, or it's difficult challenges, things like that. And then as you get to know those categories, and as you get to know the energy overall of this group of birds does this group of birds does that, then maybe you can start to connect to individual birds. And I don't think there's any one approach into this. I think some people might come at it going, well, actually, I already love the red kite, for example. I'm already really connected to that energy. But then maybe they'll go, oh, it's really cool to learn about other birds within that scavenging category, that bird of prey category, because obviously it fits into both. And I think that's important to note as well, that some birds will cross those categories as well. You know, you're going to have birds that are both scavengers and birds of prey, birds that make beautiful sounds but also live in the water, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think it's helpful from a starting point, but also perhaps from a ritual perspective or a magic perspective, you can just draw on the generalized energy of what you associate with that group of birds as well, and what it means to you.
Brilliant. That makes perfect sense. Now, if we look at myths and folklore, because there must be a huge amount of that on birds, do you think it's important to the magic of them? Do we draw from that?
So much, yeah, absolutely. Certainly when researching the book, it's like every little bit of folklore, every myth it's just a snapshot back through time, because it's like taking a look back through time and going, right, well, several hundred years ago, people were thinking this about birds. Oh, and guess what? We still think that about birds today. That is an association that has endured for X amount of time. And sometimes it's interesting to see how recent some of what we believe is as well. For looking at magpies, everybody knows the adage of like the thieving magpies being attracted to shiny objects and things like that. And it's not true. It's scientifically disproven. Exeter University did this massive study on it. The magpies will no more go for shiny objects than they will go for dull objects. They will pick stuff up and they will take them because, like most corvids, they are incredibly curious and they want to know what things are, and they might take weird stuff away for their nests and so forth. But then they don't particularly go for shiny things. They don't particularly steal shiny things. The whole myth about it is exactly 210 years old. It comes from a French play in which a scullery maid was blamed for stealing, and it turned out to be a thieving magpie. Rossini then turned that play into an opera, which became massively famous, and that publicity has given the magpie a bad rep for 2 centuries. But then there's also, because people believe that, then it becomes a self-fulfilling bias, because every time somebody sees a magpie pick up a bit of foil or a sweet wrapper or, the tab off a can or whatever, I told you, look, that magpie is picking up a shiny object. And it just snowballs like this. And I just think it's fascinating, because without the folklore that leads into that, without the mythology, without the stories and plays and stuff that are written inspired by the birds, we wouldn't know why that happened. And I think as well, you've sort of got 2 ways of looking at how you deal with that. It's like, okay, so rationally, we know that's not true. Magpies don't do that. But can you still actually tap into the energy of that universal belief? Can I still see the magpie as being associated with wealth, with hoarding, with potential avarice or greed? And of course you can, because humans have for 210 years believed that. And you can tap into that energy and what the bird symbolizes. But you can also I'm going to go a bit deeper and go, well, I know that's not true. I'm going to see the magpie as representing people who are misunderstood, people who have been wrongly accused, fights for justice, activism, and you can tap into both sides of that energy. And but without the original stories and the folklore and the things that inspire those stories to start with, obviously there wouldn't be any of that. So yeah, I think it's incredibly important. I think it's important to look at stories and folklore and myths from a range of times as well. Because you can go back to ancient Greece and you've got Hebe and the eagle reclaiming the chalice of the nectar of the gods. And that's, thousands of years old. But we still today associate eagles with like greatness and connections with the gods and stuff. So yeah, I think it's almost a magic in and of itself to see how powerful and enduring some of those associations can be.
That's brilliant. I love magpies. They are one of the birds that I find fascinating. 210 really is not ancient. It's vintage.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's a snapshot, isn't it? Yeah. But we're so...
Well, we kind of get hooked up, aren't we? And it's got to be ancient to be important.
Oh, yeah.
But
I think
is fluid, isn't it? Witchcraft is fluid. Beliefs are fluid, so it's just as valid.
Most modern witchcraft only stems from last century and a bit, really, doesn't it? Even when we look back and we look at older practices, what we're doing now, for most people anyway, is not ancient, even though it may be inspired by older ancient practices. So yeah, I think it's great to look at a range of things. So go way back and have a look, but also have a look at what people were doing more recently, because it can help have a more potent impact because it was more recent, because it's fresher in the sort of collective memory. Yeah. So
basically, magpies will thieve anything. Not this bird.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I guess they'll just take anything. Apparently, it's just a natural curiosity thing. In the study that they did, they would pick things up, but then if they weren't actually useful or edible, most of the time they just drop them again and move on. So sort of reading between the lines, that if they do take something, it's because either they think it's edible or it's for nesting purposes. Yeah, most of the trash actually gets left behind. Yeah, they'll pick through it. But if it's not useful to them, they'll just leave it.
Fascinating creatures. Absolutely brilliant. And beautiful as well.
Yeah, I love them. The iridescent, when they move and the black turns like blue and purple and stuff. I'm like, we have magpies in the garden every day, and I still sort of go, every time I see it, it's like, it just never gets old,
No, they are brilliant. And I always salute them whenever I see them. See, that's I don't know where I picked that up from, but you have to.
Oh, that's an old superstition, is that one? Yeah, that I think that gets a mention in the book. we say good morning here in Yorkshire. It's good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning, Magpie, or good morning, Mr. Magpie. I think the tradition up here was good morning, Mr. Magpie, where's your wife?
Yes.
Which I don't think anybody says anymore. And the
And
idea is that if you see one,
there must be
that's
another one
the
somewhere.
sorrow connection.
Oh,
But if you
okay.
sort of say, oh, where's your wife?
Yeah.
You're consciously looking about for two, which then is the joy
Yes.
connection. So it's like, fixing your superstitions,
Yeah.
basically.
But I used to say hello to the magpies before I
Yeah.
was on like magical spiritual paths. So it must have been
Oh,
something I
absolutely,
picked
yeah.
up from grandparents or something.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think one of the oldest bits of bird folklore I can remember learning was when I was, really little, probably 4 or 5. And my grandmother told me that if a bird poos on your luggage, it's good luck for when you're travelling. And I have since looked that up, and it is a thing that she wasn't winding me up.
Right.
I mean, it might not be true, just to be clear, not advocating for people going out and getting the suitcases pooed on, but it is something that people have believed for at least a couple of centuries again. So, but yeah, again, that wasn't from anybody with a pagan perspective. That was just sort of just a well-known superstition that just
Yeah.
went around.
I think they're
Yeah.
brilliant. So what can we get? I mean, I do work with birds. I work with magpie, I work with pigeon, I work with seagull. I live by the sea,
Right.
so that kind of makes sense. What can we gain from a bird magic?
The main thing that you can get is a better understanding of yourself and the different aspects of yourself via a better understanding of the diversity among the world of birds. If you connect to a particular bird for its resilience or its strength or its courage in the face of adversity, for example, like I always think of as the wrens being this tiny thing but with this massive voice, and that association for me is, it doesn't matter how small or weak you feel, you always have the opportunity to speak out and say your piece when it matters, and that can be one aspect of yourself. You can have that strength within you to do that. Or, you might connect to the jackdaw and its social family group nature and how they all look out for each other and they flock together. And maybe that's also an aspect of you, how you maybe want to be spending more time with family, or you want to be working harder for your family, or you want to be giving yourself a break and maybe stepping back and taking some time for yourself, and how that helps you be a better family member or team member. And I think for me, certainly, it's that way of going, I'm watching these creatures and that reminds me about this in myself or in somebody else. If you're working with other people, saying to somebody, oh, well, if you're dreaming about this bird, this could mean this. But it's not the only thing it's not the only aspect of you as a person either. And I guess I'm lucky where we live because we really do have an incredible diversity of birds. I live in Yorkshire, quite a suburban area, to be honest. I'm not out in the countryside or anything. But on any given day, like, you go down to the park and you'll see blue tits, great tits, long-tailed tits, goldfinches, bullfinches, greenfinches, sparrows, starlings, dunnocks. If you go over near the water, there's grey herons, there's mallards, there's grey-lag geese, there's Canada geese, and and that's red kites flying overhead. We get common buzzards around here, crows, jackdaws, magpies. We get the occasional jay, and that is that's not even the tip of the iceberg. That is just common birds around here, and if you learn enough about those birds and get that experience to sort of go, right, oh, there's this bird, well, that makes me think of this, or that's associated with that. And then it's like suddenly you've got this massive toolbox for magical symbolism, for spiritual symbolism, for meditation and visualization, for connecting with nature, and for understanding that all these bird correspondences and symbolisms like freedom or courage or strength all come back to aspects within yourself. So it really is a toolbox for working on just your own spiritual self and improving that in any way you want to do it,
Yeah.
basically.
I think it's important too, isn't it? I mean, I'm on the edge of a city, small garden. We do get seagulls because we need the sea, but mostly we get sparrows. Lots of sparrows. I feed them when we get loads of sparrows and pigeons, but they are equally as magical as
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I think people they always seem to go for that. Oh, I need an eagle or a crow. Or sparrows got just as much magical energy, haven't they?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think there is this, and this is throughout any sort of nature fascination. When an animal of any kind, bird, mammal, lizard, looks cool, then or is big or predatory or cute, then they get a lot more attention. It's like the panda and the WWF. The animal that is least likely to conserve itself, that just will not respond to conservation efforts, but that is the animal that the WWF use as their badge because it's cute and it's striking and everybody recognizes it.
Good for marketing.
Even though it has zero interest in its own survival.
Just sits and eats bamboo all day,
Yeah. And I think it's similar with birds. People, the eagle, massive symbol of, as we said before, going back to ancient Greece, the nectar of the gods, Olympia, Zeus becoming an eagle, and into the modern day, you've got the sort of symbolism of freedom, particularly like the bald eagle in America, for example, and stuff like that. And I think it's very striking. Eagles are massive, great, big, huge birds of prey, king of the birds, etc. Similar with crows. Crows are common, but they're also cool because they're black and they're sleek looking. And I think as well that especially in pagan circles, you've got that thing of the crow fits in with what people consider a witchy aesthetic, which I think is possibly, it's not necessarily, there's no real aesthetic to being a witch. Obviously, you can do whatever you want, but media wise, I think that's a stereotype that's been fostered over many years. And no disrespect to crows at all. I love crows; they're one of my favorite birds. But they have such strong associations with magic and witchcraft and stuff. I mean, some of that comes from genuine lore as well. I mean, there are a lot of, for example, Irish folklore that circles around like crows or rooks, possibly ravens, especially associated with deities like Morrigan, Bave, and so on and so forth. So, some of that is absolutely reasonable association. But yeah, people would rather, I think, have a magical connection to the spirit of the crow than the spirit of the sparrow. And then we sort of go, right, well, yeah, because sparrows are, despite dwindling numbers, which is a bit sad, they are pretty much everywhere. You can see them on any street, towns, cities, parks, also out in the countryside as well. The little, the brown, they're not very interesting. But actually, there's a ton of folklore about sparrows, mythology. Stephen King famously used them as a psychopomp in one of his books. A creature that can move souls from one plane to the other, which is back to that sense of birds. Hey, yeah, really. And back to the idea of birds transitioning from one state to the other, one plane of existence to the other. So yeah, there's loads of fascinating stuff about sparrows, and I think that's it. When you start to dive into it and you go beyond the sort of, oh my god, I'm going to say a sentence that makes no sense at all, trendy birds, to having a look at the ones that are more common that are on your doorstep, and I think you sort of something will click and you sort of go like, wow, these are actually really, really cool. As one of the things I like about sparrows is when you hear them all chattering to each other, and you can walk past a hedge, like a privet hedge, just a box standard privet hedge, and you can hear them chattering inside. You can't see them because they're so deep inside the hedge, and it's like, I love that. I think that's really cool. And then some will spook them and they'll all just flock out of the hedge in like one big go. And it's a bit like, whoa, like, how are there 50 birds inside that tiny hedge? You know?
When we grew that
Yeah.
in my tiny garden, but we get a whole hedgerow full of sparrows. Yeah, it's quite amazing.
I think they're brilliant.
They are. I think it is. Is it perhaps just be open, even if it is just a sparrow?
That's it. Yeah.
So how would we connect? How would people connect with bird magic?
Well, I think the good thing about any sort of nature-based magic, activity, spirituality is that it doesn't matter what path you're already on, you can work it in because we're all surrounded by nature at some level. Even if you're in the middle of a city, even if you never get out into green spaces, you're going to be able to stick your head out the window and see pigeons, crows, sparrows, starlings, that sort of thing. I would recommend getting to know what birds are in your local area to start with. If you're absolutely determined to connect to something a bit more exotic, I mean, you absolutely can. What you'll probably have to do is just work with imagery, and I'm literally going like as simple as downloading an image off Google or something and seeing how that resonates with you. Learning about birds and learning about their folklore, learning about mythology, learning about them, how they are in the world, their behaviour. Bird behaviour is really fascinating, and there's lots of books out there on it, and like you can buy guides to birds of Britain or birds of wherever you are in the world, and just learn little bits about, what they eat, where they go, are they migratory, do they stay here all year round, do they move on in the colder months. For example, in the UK, we see a lot of starlings in winter, and the assumption is that that's because they don't migrate. So obviously when swifts and swallows and that migrate away in late autumn, winter, early spring, we notice the birds that stay more. However, when I was researching the book, I found out that the reason it feels like there's loads of starlings in winter is because they migrate here from Russia. And I was like, so they actually do migrate. The ones we've got tend to stick around. Some of them might move on, but yeah, we get a lot of extra starlings in the winter, which I never realised. So yeah, learning about how your local bird population changes with the seasons it's really interesting anyway, but also it can help you know which birds you might want to connect with at different times of the year, their associations. Meditating on a bird, so get the image of the bird, have a look at it, relax into that. One of the groups that I work with, we support disabled and neurodivergent pagans. One of the things we come across is people's challenges with meditation. For example, if they are autistic or are ADHD diagnosed, some people, not everybody, but some people really struggle with that. But I'll probably just disclaimer that with there isn't any one right way to meditate. So if you look at an image and you just think about it and you focus on that, then that can be meditating. If you can't visualize, use these visual aids, use audio aids. You can record yourself speaking and talking about something and just listen to that of somebody else. And if you can't meditate at all, there's other thing you can journal on birds. So learn about and write down what you've learned, write down how that's making you feel, what you might want to do in terms of magic or ritual or spellcraft, if that's your thing, or just spiritual connection, whatever resonates with your path. Journal on that and how the birds that you're learning about fit into that, how that's going to bolster that, what your goal is for that. If you dream about birds, or if you dream about a specific bird, when you wake up, make a note of that straight away, even if it's just on a notepad on your phone, and try and do that consistently. Because what you might find is that over time you might start to see patterns. Oh, actually, this is this is just presuming that you're in tune with phases of the moon, which not everybody is, but you might find, oh, every waxing crescent, I'm dreaming about a swan. And there might be some significance for that for you. And finding those patterns. Be discerning as well. I would say that about any spiritual practice, for example, like not every crow that you see is going to be a messenger from Anne Morrigan. But if you're seeing three crows like every morning in a different place, so that might be telling you something. That might be saying, have you fulfilled your spiritual commitments that you said you were going to do? Or are you, is there something you need to be going back and doing? So yeah, I think it's easy to get started with bird magic because birds are all around us. But I think finding your own way into it by the things that you're already comfortable with, so whether that's journaling, whether that's meditating, whether that's visualization, whether that's group work, it's all possible. But I think the key is really just learning about birds, learning about the myths and the folklore, which is fun. It's fun to read mythology and folklore and get to know these incredible animals, even like nature documentaries and stuff. Get your David Attenborough on.
Can't go wrong. Can't go wrong with a David Attenborough. Now, you mentioned ritual. Do you use bird energy, for want of a better description, within ritual?
For myself, how I work with birds in ritual is mainly looking at the seasonal energy. And by that, I mean, most of the ritual work I do is seasonal. It's about the turning of the year and turning of the season, sort of the big 8 points around the year. And but sometimes maybe just about seasonal transition, so spring into summer, summer into autumn, etc. And in the book, I've actually sketched out some rituals which are not path specific. You can adjust them to your own path. You can stick deities that you are wanting to honour in there, whatever makes it personal to you. But what I've done is I've looked at, for that time of year, what birds are most active. I mean, this is coming from my personal area, obviously, but for example, in spring, I've focused on the birds that have remained through winter. So this is like an early spring ritual, inbox sort of time, inboxing a spring equinox. So you're looking at robins, wrens, starlings, energy of that sort of resilience through winter, sticking it out, but then also the hope and energy and new beginnings of spring. And that energy coming from birds like the mistle thrush or the song thrush, the first time you hear their song as the season is changing, and that feeling of confirmation that yes, we are moving into something new, and how that can apply to different aspects of life as well. I've talked about the use of feathers in ritual as well for cleansing a space. So a lot of people use smoke to cleanse space, or water or sweeping, and you can do similar with found feathers. I just want to be absolutely clear. Please don't go around plucking your local birds. Just found feathers. So I've got a big goose feather that I found. I've got some jackdaw feathers from outside the house, which is from when jackdaws were nesting on the roof. I've got some magpie feathers, and so for like the winter into spring ritual, using the feathers to sweep the stale winter energies away, and think about that new energy coming in, and there's all sorts of other associations in there as well. So with the sweeping away, we've got the air coming in. You're physically moving air in because that's what feathers do. They move the air about, and then you've got that association with the elements of air, the direction of east, if that's appropriate to your path. Openings, new beginnings, and you can just sort of keep pulling those ideas into your rituals. So then in summer, you've got this huge diversity of birds, and I think sometimes in summer seasonal rituals, we often talk about the richness and fullness of the season and all the fruits and crops that are available. But that's the same in the world's wildlife as well. Everybody's back. All the migratory birds have come back. None of them that are moving on have left yet. So you've suddenly got this huge diversity of fauna that you can sort of pull from those energies, and like great herons gliding overhead, or the calling of the curlew, and birds nesting in the fields, and so on and so forth. And you can, I think you can really pull from those energies into your ritual, and you can make it relevant for any sort of group work. I think, especially if you write rituals together, because you can all sort of put in something that's personal to you then as well.
Yeah, brilliant. I use feathers a lot in magical work.
Yeah.
I think they're brilliant for that. So do you personally have any specific birds that you work with?
My favourite bird is the curlew, the Eurasian curlew to be specific, because that's the only one we get over here. And it's not so much that I work with it magically. It's just one of those creatures that stops me in my tracks every time I see one or hear one. We go camping up around North Yorkshire a fair bit, and the curlew, although it's a wading bird and it lives and eats at the coast, it comes inland to nest. They nest in meadows and fields and stuff like that. So I've been lucky enough to see and hear like loads of them over the fields in North Yorkshire, and they've got this incredible sound, which I'm not going to attempt to do because they're quite funny, but it sounds like they're sort of almost revving up, like they're winding up, and then they just let out this long, almost mournful, haunting, hooting call. And they've got this these long, really long, thin, and then curved beaks as well. And to me, they seem like a creature out of a fantasy novel. They seem like something completely made up, and I'll just look at them and go, "What a world! I live in a world with that. Look at it; it's incredible." And I just think they're absolutely fascinating. We found some of the eggs from abandoned nests when we were walking through the fields before, little green speckled things, and they're quite endangered as well, which I only found out sort of starting to research the book and everything. And there are a lot of conservation efforts in place. So like one of the problems is that they nest in fields, and then the nests will get crushed by farming equipment and stuff. So I think there is now a lot more protection in place, and sort of raising awareness with people working agriculture and stuff of maybe leaving nesting areas for a certain amount of time so that the numbers can swell. But they're fascinating. And from a more that's a sort of everyday magic thing for me. That's like that constant reminder of like, wow, mystery in the world. From a practical magic perspective, I think it's got to be corvids in general, crows specifically, and this has been sort of a thing throughout my life. I ended up rescuing a crow when I was a lot younger. This is going back many years. Rescuing a crow and looking after it for many years, because it was one of those things that it was out of its nest quite young, fully feathered, but it wasn't flying, and it was getting attacked by a load of other birds. And it's one of those things, if a bird is out of a nest, normally you should leave it alone, because normally it's just part of the fledging process. But unfortunately, this one was getting really harassed and like pecked and pecked and pecked. So I sort of scooped it up, took it home, took it to the vet, and the vet was like, "Oh, its wings are all messed up. You best stop having it put down, because it'll never be able to fly, so it won't be able to survive in the wild. You would have to look after it for the rest of its life." I'm like, "Well, I'll just do that then." So so that was ended up with a crow living at a house and then moving out with me, and then it had to move back to a family member's house, unfortunately, where it did pass away eventually, but it must have been about 30, I think, maybe by the time yeah, certainly late 20s. So, but yeah, and it was very educational, especially on how intelligent and mischievous crows can be. You'd give him bits of food and he would eat some of it, and then he would look at you, see if you were looking, and if he thought you weren't looking, he would like go over to the washing pile, or lift it up and hide the food underneath, and then look at you like, what? Didn't do anything. And then you'd see him later on go back to the little pile and shuffle the food in, and he'd take care. And absolutely fantastic birds. But yeah, I think just so many strong magical associations. They are intelligent. They are social, incredibly social. They're associated with strong bonds crows mate for life. In most cases, crows will also look after each other if they. There are examples of crows looking after each other when they become disabled. There's I've seen a story about a pair of crows where one of them, the beak became broken. The other one feeds it like for years. Um, um, yeah, this associated, as we touched on before, with deities like Morrigan, Babe in Irish mythology, which is something that's quite close to my heart as well. Um, so yeah, I think we've just got such strong magical associations, but then they are magical in their own way as well. Like just watching them and observing them, it feels if you see them and you get to watch them and they're around you like a lot, it just feels like a real privilege to get a snapshot of that and of their lives and what's going on. And I love all these stories that you hear about people who feed crows and they start being brought gifts as well. So people leave especially peanuts. Apparently, leaving peanuts out for crows is a thing. Apparently, they're not salted, just like either monkey nuts or just plain peanuts. And after a while, some crows will just start just bringing random odds and ends back. I had a red balloon left in the bird feeder one time. I have no proof as to what left it there, or if it just popped and fell out of the sky. But it was right in the middle of the bird feeder, a popped red balloon, and I was like, "Well, that's quite random. Don't know what that's about."
Well, my birds need to step up the game because I've been feeding them for years and I've had nothing.
I'll say, I mean, I've only had a bit of rubber. But yeah,
there is something magical, there isn't there? Even as I say, on the edge of the city, I put bird food out every day, but just to sit there and watch them all come and feed and flit about.
Do it all day, yeah.
It's also, as a gardener as well, I don't need to use any pesticides. Well, I wouldn't anyway, but I don't need to because if you get it right, the birds end up eating all of the aphids as well. You can watch the sparrows on the roses eating all the green fly, which is brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I always enjoy it when my husband's been out and he's mown the lawn, which obviously churns everything up a bit, and a robin will come down and it will sit on the handle of the lawnmower looking around for the most exposed bits where it can go and get some grubs or worms or what have you. And it does just waits until we're done and then move away, and it comes down and has a good scout about, and I always really enjoy that. But yeah, we sit in the garden watching them for ages, or we just sit by the kitchen door, and we get such a mix as well because we get magpies come down, and we've got not so much at the moment because of the time of year, but earlier in the year. We had a pair of crows nesting nearby, and that's always amusing because their territory is quite wide. Like one pair of crows will defend a ridiculously wide territory for one nest in a tree. And I think where they were nesting is right on the edge of the estate, but we'd have magpies coming down into the garden, and you could sort of go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and one of these crows would just swoop down and start mobbing these magpies. Like, nope, sorry, too close to my babies now, off you go. And it was incredible because, they're so agile as well. So they would just come down and just be like banking and weaving around the garden. And absolutely incredible to watch. And then we had a pair of jays, which I think are possibly the most exotic looking bird that we've got in this country with the pink and blue and everything. Although we do get hoopos now, although I've never seen them.
Not Finneray, I don't think.
Oh, they're amazing. They're really closely related to crows. And the noise they make is like a rusty gate screeching. It's not particularly pleasant sound at all. But it's one of those things, I'll hear it and I'll go, somebody grinding the gears on their car outside. Oh no, it's the Jays are back again. And then go and have a look, and they're a bit shyer, I think, than crows. When you hear them, you've got to have a really good look about to see them. Like, crows will generally be like just up on rooftop edges and really visible.
Yeah.
Whereas the jays will be tucked away into a tree, so you've got to really look for that sort of flash of blue on their wings. But yeah, I'd say it's like it just feels like a privilege every time we get like a rare visitor or whatever. A woodpecker, for example. We've had a woodpecker a couple of times, and it's like, oh, thank you. And it's like that'll set me up for a week. That, yeah.
I think as pagans, I know when we're out, we've always got a plant app thing on the phone, but it used to be a tatty old tree identification book or a plant identification. I have got a tatty old British birds book that I've had for many years because I have a father who is a birdwatcher, avid birdwatcher. So I guess I was kind of brought up with watching out for birds. And identify, you said about the calls, I think it's the RSPB has bird calls on its site. If anyone wants to hear what any of them sound like, have a look at the RSPB site because they do have some bird calls, because I have used it occasionally to identify things. We need to do more of that, don't we?
The RSPB site is really good for that, and they've got lots of interesting facts and things like when to see the birds and sort of where to go to see them, where they're most densely populated and stuff. A really good free app, if you want to do bird identification, is called Merlin.
Okay.
Which is a great name for pagans, obviously. But it's I think it's by Cornell University, and it's free to download, and they're using algorithms to recognize bird song, and it's not 100% accurate. Every now and then it'll tell me that a blackbird is a golden oriole, which we don't get in this country, so that's definitely not right. But it is really useful. Like, you be out and about and you'll hear something, and you just tap the button on the app and it starts recording the bird sounds that are around and about. And then when it hears it, it'll like flash up with most likely to be.
Yeah, like the plant app.
But then you can cross-reference, because it'll show you a picture of the bird, and then you can go, oh, well, can I see that anywhere? And you can double check for yourself. But yeah, so that's a really useful tool.
Brilliant. I'll be getting that. After the bird, the Merlin, rather than the wizard, I'm assuming. Merlin is a bird of prey, isn't it?
That's right, yeah, small bird of prey. That was another thing as well. I learned that the two words, Merlin the bird and Merlin the name of the wizard, are not connected at all.
Oh.
They've got completely different roots.
Okay.
Which just seems wild. Just like, ow. Yeah, that's language for you.
Yeah. Brilliant. Absolutely fascinating. We could probably sit here for hours and talk about birds, because I was brought up. My dad had an album, a vinyl of bird sounds.
Fantastic.
I remember him listening to that when I was a child, so it must have been embedded in me somewhere.
Yeah. I've absorbed it, yeah. I keep seeing when we're out shopping, I keep seeing this clock that every hour is a different bird song, and I'm like, should I get it? Should I get it? Haven't got it yet, but I might still do.
Yeah, you need that. Brilliant. Well, The Magic of Birds, out in December.
December, yeah.
Everyone, you need it. You just do. Thank you so much.
I'm really proud of this one.
Thank you so much for today. Absolutely fascinating, and such a huge subject. We haven't even dealt with the tip of the iceberg, have we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Scratching the surface.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you to all of our viewers and listeners, and we will see you again next time on the Pagan Portal Podcast.
You have been listening to the Pagan Portal Podcast, a Moonbooks Publishing production. For more information, please visit our website.